A very good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I am Gugulethu, Cele. Joining me in studio tonight is Philippa Wild, who's the Head of Market Insight at Discovery Insure, to tell us about the latest index that Discovery Insure undertook and the findings thereof, which bring through some interesting analysis about South Africans and their driving techniques. Good to have you with us this evening, Philippa. Maybe if we get a quick overview of some of the key results that came through from this particular insightful analysis. I understand that drivers saw about a 20% change in their driving capabilities in the first few months of using or being analysed under this particular program?
Yes, so we've got what we call a Discovery Insure Driving Challenge, which is an app that anybody in South Africa can download onto their smartphones. And then it shows you how well you drive. So it looks at your acceleration, braking, cornering, and whether you use your cell phone or not whilst driving. So we are basically able to analyse how people drive, and we see that people using this app actually, as soon as they start engaging, understand what good driver behaviour is versus bad driver behaviour, they actually start driving better. So we show them when they're going over the speed limit, when they're using their cell phones, all those kind of things. And after a trip, when you see that information, you go, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be using my cell phone. Maybe I should stick to the speed limit because it's more dangerous. Maybe
if you could, because it sounds like there's a big brother literally in the car with you. How does the actual program work? You mentioned a smartphone app that you are able to download, monitoring your driver behaviour, but how does it actually work and function?
So I think one of the key things is it creates the awareness that something's monitoring you, so that you actually want to improve and drive better because you can compete with friends as well. So when you get into the car, nothing's really interacting with you because you need to have your focus on the road. So it won't show you anything while you're driving, only when you get out the car. And we see from the behaviour from last year to this year, the people who've downloaded the app this year are driving about 20%, like you said earlier, better than what they did last year, or what South Africans did last year. So it's not intrusive while you're driving, but when you get out the car, it gives you your information, and then you can sort of self-assess, okay, am I driving as well as I could? Can I be safer on the roads?
Are there particular nuances as well that you picked up on drivers when it comes to daytime driving versus in the evening?
Well, we see from our claim statistics that evening driving is much more dangerous. What's very interesting is that more people drive on Fridays and the weekends and so forth. And we look at specifically men versus women, and that's always an interesting debate.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's much closer this year than it's ever been before. But the women are still ahead. But interestingly enough, speeding is where the men get it wrong, and also the harsh braking. Last year, harsh braking was more aggressive with women, funnily enough. Wow. But that seems to have changed this year. And women are still the culprits with regards to interacting with their phones while driving, which is obviously very distracting to them.
Phones
as well.
or mascara, which one leads the pack there? Because that's also another one we're guilty of, right?
Yeah, unfortunately the app cannot tell whether you're putting on your mascara, but we know when you touch that phone, so it's probably a close race.
And on that key difference when you find females and male drivers, is this something that consumers themselves can equip themselves with when it comes to negotiating the insurance premiums? If I'm a woman, can I negotiate for a lower fee?
Yeah, I think what happens in the industry is that the insurers actually collect the information. So they see and they collect, of all the females, they claim less than all the males. So that's where normally your reduction in premium comes from. However, with the actual driving behaviour that you have, that's more factual than anything else, because there are a lot of instances where you may have a very bad female driver and she should be paying a lot more than the average female driver who's paying less than the average male. And vice versa. You'll have a guy who's an exceptional driver, but now because he's purely by the fact that he's male, he's actually paying more, and that's unfair. So by bringing driver behaviour into the whole insurance calculation and actually being able to view it, you can pay more fairly based on your actual risk.
That's so true. I get it now because it's a more precise analysis of the individual's criteria that you allude to. So either way, when you're speaking to the insurer or the client, they both can actually monitor the previous history and potentially improvement then in the driving capabilities. If there are improvements, could that be used as a platform then to negotiate on?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's the key thing. That's where the industry is moving. So, as a consumer, you don't want to pay for somebody else's risk. You want to pay for your own risk. And if your own risk is poor, this also helps you to improve it and be better. So the premium, obviously, and the impact on our pockets is huge in terms of driver behaviour. And by being able to save, I mean, at Discovery Insure, you can get up to 50% of your fuel spend back. Yeah. So, and that's, as an example, up to 800 Rand a month. But generally, clients can easily save 30 to 50% of their premiums by by driving well. And that's the one aspect of it, but by driving well, you're actually safer. And our roads are so dangerous. So by not being in that car accident, you're saving a lot more than just money.
And are we see that coming through, that so from the findings and the results and those who are actively participating to have their driving monitored, that their risk of actually being involved in a car accident minimizes slightly?
Yes, it's actually directly correlated, and I think that's where the intelligence of what Discovery Insure is doing with our actuaries and telematics and analysts and engineers. We give you a score, and that score actually takes into consideration all aspects of driving, but directly related to your accident risks. So the people who get the highest score have fewer accidents and less severe accidents. And vice versa. So that directly comes through in what you're paying for your insurance at the end of the day.
What about young drivers, especially those under the age of 25?
So again, you know, they've got a hard rap because they have less experience, and especially maybe in the male area, is that they want to drive aggressively. They've got a freedom of car and they have more accidents. So if you've got a good driver, you should not be penalised for that just because you're young. So we've got another benefit where we give up to 25% back of premiums plus the fuel rewards, and our young drivers can save as much as 70% of their premiums. So it really is just a case of, in that specific category, you want to be recognised for your driver behaviour, because unfortunately, as a start, insurance companies will give you a very expensive rate because you're in that poor risk category. I think what I also want to say from seeing from our Discovery Insure driving challenge, which is very interesting, is that if you look at all the people using the challenge, the older people have got better scores than the younger people, and that speaks to experience. And maybe after you've had children, you want to be safer in the cars as well, you're more responsible and so forth. But funnily enough, if you look at the clients, our clients on the app, all the guys younger than 30 are actually driving better than the South Africans not on our app, older than 30. So that just shows the power of having that information and actually being able to do something about your risk, and especially where it's directly related to how much you pay for your insurance.
Precisely. To keep with the theme of young individuals, though, I think it's also quite a poignant exercise, because instead of having parents who often take the insurance cover on behalf of their younger children in the hopes of getting lower premiums, now when they actually monitor the behavior of the actual driver, which usually is the child or individual under the age of 25, then it's a more a visible representation of your driving behavior, managing the risk as well as equal to the premium as well. So you'd often encourage parents, then I take it, to actually allow their children to take up the ownership and even the insurance premiums of the vehicles that they drive.
Definitely, and I think that's the key, is that it actually puts the control back into the consumer's hand, and specifically those young adults. I think what a lot of people in the industry do, and to their own detriment, is that they say, you know what, my daughter who's 18-year-old, let me just say I'm driving the car. And then they pay a lower premium because it's based on the 40, 45-year-old's age risk profile. What happens is if there's an accident and they can show that the young person was driving and wasn't insured properly, the whole claim gets rejected. Yeah. So you might have been saving 200-300 rand a month, but at the end of the day you lose the full value of the car at claim stage. And this really empowers, you know, parents and children to have that discussion and be able to, you know, talk about what is good driving and, yeah, manage your own risk and get rewarded for it.
Precisely. But what about costs? You alluded to that. I take it a lot of consumers who are already under pressure view insurance as a grudge purchase, and the same thing when it comes to vehicle insurance as well. But should they be monitoring that as well when it comes to the telematics and all the bells and whistles associated with insurance cover?
Yeah, of course, cost is a very important thing, and it's important to be happy with what you're paying for your cover. The critical thing for me is having cover, but with what telematics enables is obviously to reduce that according to your own risk. And then the second thing is all the safety features that comes automatically with that, which I think sometimes is taken for granted. So for example, because of the device that we have, if you're in an accident, it immediately sends an alert to us and we phone you, and if we can't get hold of you, we can dispatch an emergency response immediately at that point in time. Sure. So as a mom myself, I'll pay anything for that kind of benefit that the au pair is busy driving my kids around. So it's very important that that people understand the full offering of what they're buying with insurance. So it's not just always the fact that when you have a claim, it's actually how do you prevent that claim and how do you get the right protection in the event of having that claim.
Exactly. And cheaper insurance premiums don't always equal the best insurance cover that you're getting, correct? Which is another mistake that we typically make. Yeah,
and a big thing to open up there is the level of excess that you have to pay when you have a claim. And it's very important that you understand what that is. And there's sometimes a lot of hidden excesses, like again, for the young driver, just because you're younger than 25, they'll say you have to pay an extra excess.
Coming back to the report very briefly, just before we get our takeaway points, are we seeing a pattern of successive and improving driver behavior in South Africans, especially for the clients who download the app?
Well, yes, from our findings, especially from last year to this year, we are seeing people improve their driving behaviour, which is encouraging. I think for us, we'd like to expand that and get more people involved in the loop to start seeing that, you know what, they can actually make a difference and understand their risk and improve their driving behaviour.
Indeed. Philippa, we certainly said quite a bit, but let's get a quick recap of tonight's conversation. Coming back to what we've learned from the Discovery Insure driving app and creating positive and better drivers in the South African society, what can consumers actually learn about this tonight?
I think very importantly is that you've got an ability to impact the risk that you have on the road. You've got the ability to drive well. And all you need are the tools to understand that. So firstly, see where you go wrong. Is there a certain place every time when you drive to work where you take the corner maybe too aggressively, where you speed too much? Get the information to show you where you're going wrong. Understand at what level of risk you are of having an accident and do something about changing it and get rewarded for that. You know, and have that impact your ultimate cost of insurance.
Exactly. And I take it again, shop around, look for a good deal, but more importantly, monitor the driving behavior that you have, like you say.
Yes, I think that's critical. You want to be safe on the roads and you want protection in case something goes wrong. So what's really going to be the best for you from protecting your family, from a financial cost, and yeah, being safe on the roads. That's
exactly.
Critical.
Just before we wrap it up, I just want to find out, as South African drivers, how do we compare though to our international counterparts, if you have any figures on that?
The best way I can say is that from a fatality rate, unfortunately, we're one of the worst. We've got about 32 per 100,000 that die each year on our roads. Wow. So I would say not well to most countries. And that's also why it's so important that you need to understand that and actually start doing something about being safer on our roads.
Exactly. That's motivation enough, I think, for anyone to make sure that they change their driving behavior. Philippa, thank you so much for your time this evening. Unfortunately, that is where we leave it for Personal Finance tonight. A big thank you once more to Philippa Wild, who's the Head of Market Insight at Discovery Insure. Remember that we want to hear from you and find out how you fare as a driver. And perhaps if you've experienced the Discovery driving app, tell us what your experience has been like, and you can tweet any of your comments or suggestions to @CNBC Africa using the hashtag Finance410 or to myself @Gugulethu on Twitter. Until next time though, happy driving and save more money.